Um, we're getting into a panel of discussion, and just to follow what Michael have talked about monetization, we are going to go into monetization on serious game. Now, I'm having two iPads, so a Gen 1 and Gen 2, so yeah. Okay, for those of you who have not downloaded our apps yet, feel free to download our apps. You would be able to pose a question. I already see there is like 4 questions out there on this topic. So as we go along, you have more questions, you're too shy to ask them out, just post it on and we will be able to answer as much as we can. So let me just begin formally. My name is Christopher Ng. I've been in the gaming industry for like 16 years doing entertainment games. So I would like to, pass the mic down to the panel so everybody get to know who is on the panel. Very interesting group of people. A lot of money there. So we could really seriously get into some discussion on where the money is.
Hi everybody, I'm Joyce NG from iGlobe Partners. We are actually a venture capital firm investing into digital media from the early to growth stage company. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Marcus. I work for a company called Smaato Inc. In case you don't know, you can go and check it out on the website, www.smaato.com. We're basically a 7-year-old company from the Valley. And our key objective is really bringing advertising dollars to publishers and developers like yourself who are in the gaming industry.
Thanks. I'm Viplav. I run a company called Atelier in India. We're a simulations product company, and we are a startup.
Okay, so now we have someone who brings advertisement to the table. Someone who is looking at companies at startup level, I presume. So let's just throw the question, Joyce. What actually do you think monetization is?
Well, basically, I think in terms of monetization of serious games, it is very dependent on the primary objective as well as the secondary objective, because as far as I'm concerned, I think serious game is somewhat trying to build a game in terms of causing awareness in different areas, maybe in the healthcare, right? Maybe in the army. So I think in terms of monetization, is really dependent on very much the primary objective and secondary objective. It may not be necessarily every of the commercial kind of entities kind of take a shorter term in terms of a quantitative approach, right, due to the importance of the bottom line. In terms of other areas like maybe the public agencies, they may often take a longer term in terms of qualitative approach due to difficulty in quantifying some outcomes. So to me, it's really dependent on what objective you want to arrive at. Yeah.
Not that complicated. Monetization from a advertising perspective is very simple. Bringing advertising dollars from a brand or from someone who wants to put an ad dollar onto a platform. It could be a game, it could be a website, it could be a serious game product, and that's it. I think one thing I realized is that when I first got to know that there's an opportunity to talk about monetization in serious gaming, the word serious gaming scares me a little bit, because I was like, what is serious gaming? I did some research, and there are different so-called definitions of serious gaming. You talk about serious gaming in industries where they use game as a virtualization or demonstration of a product to train someone. Or you are talking about serious gamers who are entrenched in a virtual world or a gaming world, and how do you reach them how do you reach out to these guys? From an advertising perspective, I've spent 20 odd years in the advertising industry, from traditional advertising to digital to mobile today. It's all about how do how brand reach out to the consumers at the end of the day. It's not about how you do it, but it's about when brands has the money, where do you put the money, and how do you reach out to the consumers? That's basically monetization.
So I'll take the liberty of flipping the question around and saying, instead of looking at monetization, can we look at what creates value for our customers? So what are the elements of value? We've heard of pay-per-use. We've heard of pay-per-use models. We've heard of advertising models. So I think fairly straightforward out there that there are various ways to monetize serious games and simulations. There's appropriate distinction between the two. But what really does create value for the intended audience is, I think, what we should focus on. And I'll give you some history. In the e-learning industry, what happened about as early as about 25 years ago, the aviation industry committee actually had created a standard called AICC. And the standard allowed for people to actually create e-learning content and reuse them across a variety of different types of needs and end-use situations. And then when the SCOM standard came up, a similar explosion happened because people could really write content that could virtually run on any platform. So that created some value in terms of what the customer required and needed. And in turn, that created the monetization capability for e-learning to happen. So I'd like to flip the question around and say, what creates value? I think that's more important to discuss.
Wow, that's a good turnaround. What creates value that puts the money on the plate? So, Marcus?
Okay, I'll do an attempt here. From a brand perspective or from a advertiser perspective, what creates value? The advertiser wants to use the money they put on the table to reach out to the consumers. That's basically it. So what value does the platform that allows to engage the consumer, or the platform that brings the value to engage the consumer, is important to the brand or to the advertisers in this case? From a platform perspective, or from a developer or someone who develops a game, develop an app, or develop a platform, what value do you bring? Your value is to bring and engage consumers. If you have something that you do not engage, whether it's a consumer, as in you and me, or a company that requires the service, then you are not bringing value. So how do we marry the interest of the brand, who has the dollar value, and the platform or the developers who develops the, whether it's a game or whether it's an app, and reaching out to consumers? The end result is simple. The end result is, if someone have actually engaged my service to reach out to my audience, that's where the value chain is. But if that does not connect, then to me it doesn't bring any value.
Okay, that's a very good attempt. But now coming back to Viplav's question of value to the ad. So given the fact that a lot of serious game in that manners are freemium. Freemium as defined as games for free, but there's no such thing as free. So somebody have to pay for it somewhere, and usually they will engage in some sort of advertising behind ads that pops up every now and then. So does that mean that given serious games are mostly freemium, that model would not work at all?
Yeah, I'll provide some context. The way the industry has evolved in e-learning is they focused on 4 primary elements, and it's called RAID. Reuse was one very important factor. So how can you actually reuse educational content in a variety of contexts? That was one very important piece. The second value proposition that they had was accessibility. How do you make digital content available to a wide variety of people so that they can access them seamlessly? Interoperability. Somebody talked about interoperability just now, saying how can we have platform interoperability? If something is built in Flash, can it run on a Mac? Can it not? And so on and so forth. And durability, the ability of the content to withstand technological change. So if a new version of a piece of software comes in, does your content become obsolete? So these were 4 value propositions that standards like SCOM focused on, and they built the entire architecture around these 4 value propositions. Other value propositions are cost, for example, effectiveness, for example, relevance to the curriculum, that's another one, right? The ability to scale. So these are all value propositions that customers are looking for, right? I would love to have had some K-12 students here who would come and tell us what they need from serious games, for example. So instead of looking at the industry and saying, how can we monetize, which is fairly straightforward, there are just those number of ways, we should really focus on the flip question.
Okay. Now, I'm not sure if this is getting into the mood of it, but if monetizations, depending on the value that the advertisers could bring onto the content, which serious game in general are very content focused, right? So simply means that the number of sponsors or advertisers out there is very limited, which also means that the cost of development is going to be shared by very few people. Now, how would Joyce, how would you see investing in the companies that's doing serious game, given the fact that the pool is so limited?
I think in terms of venture capital in serious game, I think it's still a very new area that most venture capitalists, in my opinion, are still looking at. Because as I said, in my definition of a serious game, it really depends on what objective you really want to get out of this. And obviously, there are examples of serious games that has managed to actually have a good revenue. I mean, it's just like Burger King, where they actually launched 3 games. And with these 3 games, there were many people who downloaded the games, and a lot of people actually went back to eat more burgers just because they want to download the games and they want to play the game. So I think in terms of investing into these companies, at this stage, I believe if there are more and more companies doing that, and they can actually show that there is a way to monetize it, and at the same time achieving certain objectives, I think people investing in it will be more than happy to be open to look at it. Yeah.
Okay, I just think back one question is that how many advertisers, how many brands, how many agencies or ad agencies in this case who holds the string to the budget actually understands serious gaming? I mean, if you tell someone about gaming or games, yes, of course you know, but how many of these guys who are really actually putting money onto digital advertising, whether it's mobile or whether it's online, understands serious gaming? Let's not talk about serious gaming. Let's move the level up. Talk about digital advertising budget today. Today, in the Asian context, we all use a smartphone here. I believe everyone uses a smartphone here. How many of you actually spending advertising dollars on your smartphone, for example? I believe probably very little. Why? Anyone? No. Why? The reason is because it's evolving so fast. Technology in terms of mobility has evolved so fast in the last 3 years that you are trying to play a catch-up. Today you learn about iPhone 4, the next thing you saw iPhone 5, and then you see Samsung launching a new phone, and then you have new tablets, and then you have new platforms coming up. It's always a catching up game. From a advertising agency perspective, or advertisers who actually host the budget, the challenge for them is really understanding what's digital advertising, or mobile, in that case, mobile advertising. And then taking a level down and say, what is serious gaming? Where do I spend the money? So I think the process has to be accelerated in a sense that people need to understand what's serious gaming. I mean, the example of Burger King is not, well, I don't know whether you call it serious gaming, but from a personal experience, 3 years back when I was with a phone manufacturing company, we were in Japan, and we saw the Japanese. Japanese is the biggest advertising, mobile advertising market in the world today. I mean, they spend a lot of time on their mobile. And what we saw was everyone in the train was on the phone, and there was one popular game where you learn how to be a chef and catch pizza on your phone. And once you catch your pizza, you get points. And with the points, you go to the pizza outlet and you exchange for free meal or coupons that you can get discount off your of the pizza. Do you call that serious gaming? I'm not sure. But that is actually a very valuable process of bringing the brand, the product, to the consumers. But they don't call it serious gaming. They call it typically a gaming advertisement or advert game that brings the value of the brand to the consumers. All right?
No, just sticking back to your question, I just got this posting 9 minutes ago. It's trying to rely on outside money, distracting serious game consumer from solving the real problem of proper funding serious game efforts. Do schools' children really need to see Pepsi ads, in the middle of their maths game because the school system is cheap?
Well, okay, I'm in the advertising business, but I do not agree that a school children should see Pepsi. Yeah, but at the same time, let's put it this way: the technology has evolved so fast that today's generation, I don't know, X, Y, Z or whatever you call it, yeah. All of them are on phones. All of them are on devices. How do you reach out to these kids? You talk to them. They will ignore you, actually. They were like, okay. I have a 15-year-old daughter, and when you talk to her, she's on her phone. Then you say, put your phone down, and she looked at you and say, what? It's tricky. But at the same time, technology has entrenched into their life. So if you're not using a concept that talks to them at that level, you're not going to talk to them. I mean, I agree that you cannot show a Pepsi or Coke ad during maths classes, but at the same time, there must be a way, there is a way to reach out to them, of course not in maths classes, but on other genre of when they are using their devices. So it has to be relevant. Okay, from a Smaato perspective, we always advocate that advertising has to be relevant, it has to be consumer acceptant, and it has to be related to the service or the product that they are engaging today. If, for example, if you're engaging a sports site or sports app, then only advertising that's related to sports should then be shown to the user. Of course, if you've shown him a cooking book recipe, the guy will say, this is crap, So that has to be critical on how you engage the consumers.
Especially in the context of serious games, which has a separate mission around it, don't you think it's time for the advertising industry to get creative and figure out newer ways to make people buy without actually clicking on ads?
Okay. Advertising, sorry, since I'm the guy who's doing advertising, I'll try and answer your question. Today's advertising on the digital space is not about clicking an ad, okay? This afternoon, I'm going to have a session on mobile advertising or advert games. I think today we talk about advertising in the form of a video, where you actually see the video of the product of your devices, and it will not bring you away from the site. When you close the video, it goes back to the site, for example. We're not talking about clicking an ad. We're talking about interactive, highly interactive advertisement. For example, we have worked with car brands like Volvo or even Ford in the US, where they have an ad run on HTML5, and you can turn the car around, choose the color, have a look at interior, have a look at exterior, read about it, and then make an appointment with the dealers to have a test drive and even win a prize if you go for a test drive. So it's not about clicking an ad. It's about how do you engage the consumers, just not at banner. I mean, banner is, if I choose to say passé, it's that. But it's about making sure that it has to be relevant to that user. Yes, and we have something called, today we use a word called personal data mining. So what it basically means is that we do not know exactly who you are, as in your name and your photo and your person, but we would know that if you have a regular behaviorable movement, that you go to a certain mall at a certain time and you do certain things at a certain time, we know you falls into a certain category, and we would then try and figure out what is the best kind of relevant ads that would run with your behavior.
And I think that's specifically relevant in education. A lot of this information around personal analytics is now helping people to create personalized content for students. So there's a lot of overlap between the ad analytics and personal trails as with education.
Yeah, I think that would be interesting. I saw another one up here. How serious are investors on funding serious game publisher in the Asia region? Whoa, that is...
Well, as I said earlier, right, I mean, in terms of funding serious games publishers, I think a whole lot depends on really, you know, what are the value add that these serious games companies can deliver, and depending on the kind of business model that they are looking at, where we will then be able to analyze and decide whether, you know, it is something worthwhile for us to invest in. And I'm sure, you know, in doing certain research, you know, serious games, advert games, you know, gamification, all this falls into a different definition that everybody is saying. So, I mean, you can say you're a serious game company. Maybe after a while you realize, hey, I shouldn't call myself a serious game companies. So call me something else. And then, you know, there's opportunities where we will definitely look at it. Yeah. So I think putting yourself into just a serious game companies, I think it's not going to help you very much. But as I've said very clearly at the beginning, I think serious games has a certain level of objective they want to do. Just for example, when Marcus said that, you know, whether should the class be pop up with Pepsi Cola advertising and all this. Now, you know, I think a lot of children are learning things differently. For example, learning history very differently. So I know of Magma Studios, who was commissioned by the National Heritage Board to do a serious game, so to speak, really, to teach children about history. And during my days, you know, I learned history to memorizing. Today, my kid, 14 years old, just like his, well, you know, basically they don't learn it that way. So, I mean, you know, in a way, serious game is really different. You know, people are teaching it in different way. The objective-wise is really different. And, you know, I have a chat with the CEO of Magma Studios and says that, well, you know, it's really delivering different outcome. And the outcome has been really, really superb, you know, in that sense. And who knows, you know, someone can advertise on the game itself. Yeah, that's right.
I think with my experience with the investment community, one of the biggest things that investors are looking for is the ability or the potential to scale, which directly translates into the return on investment or the exit that the investor can get over a period of time. And as such, there's of course a problem when you're looking at investment in a services company versus looking at investment in a products company. And that, I think, is an important distinction. Or if people are looking to get invested in, I think that's an important decision point for most investors. Services don't scale, products do scale, or they have the potential to scale.
Maybe if I can add something to this. There are investors that invest in games, okay? But investing in a game, you're only as good as your last game, okay? It doesn't mean because you have a success with one game that your next game is going to be a success. Take a look at the Rovio. Angry Birds, 41st game. They had 40 games before that.
103rd game that they're successful.
Right. And now Piggies, you know, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, you know, for a lot of the investors, you know, it's about building a company, helping to build a company. So it has to be a platform that can deliver a number of things, not just one game, okay? Because we're trying to build a company, we're trying to build value into a company that somebody else down the road will see, and we can make money from that. So when you talk about investors looking at investing in games, you have to look at it not just one game. It's got to be something that's a platform that's sustainable, okay? That after we're gone with our money and we help support the company, that company will still be viable, okay? So, you know, you have to be careful when you say, you know, investors are not investing in serious games, not in one serious game. We're looking at companies that are able to have a platform that can deliver things, okay?
That's right, and that's why I said looking at products necessarily also means looking at platforms and teams that can support products over a long time. I mean, that's fairly critical to do. No investor is going to invest in a team that doesn't look to be stable past the first 3 years. But the challenge really is because the market is nascent, there aren't enough case studies or, you know, if somebody comes and tells you that demonstrate that this will be a successful product, as you said, this product could be successful, but the next one could be a total failure. So there isn't a easy way of actually predicting that success or even forecasting any kind of success in serious games. And that's a challenge for investors, I think.
Cool. Just to add, you know, on crowdfunding, Kickstarter, there's a number of games that have been funded. So if you have a low budget games, maybe you can go through that. And there was one game that actually raised $3.2 million. I think it's 17,000 people. So there are other ways for single game development to do things now with crowdsourcing.
Yes. So I just wanted to address that last comment before I ask my actual question. A lot of those companies on Kickstarter that actually make, they actually meet their funding goals, that have a lot of brand names and history backing them. So for serious games, for serious game makers who, are launching or trying to get people behind their cause without prior history, that might be still be a problem unless they have a lot of star power. This Kickstarter, unfortunately, has been boast a lot of star power.
I don't necessarily agree. I mean, it comes back to the way you market your games.
Also true.
Okay? So again, you're targeting a certain audience, okay, to raise those funding. And if you market in a certain way, it's very diversified out there. There's always somebody that's interested in helping a cause. Because they look at it as a cause, right? It's not necessarily about star power. Obviously, star power,
just
anything you just
games,
put it out there. If you don't have that star power, then you have to do a bit more work. But it can be done.
Hopefully someone can step up to the plate. But sorry, my actual question was more about, are there not say VCs, but I suppose independent funds who actually specifically look at investing into serious games or social enterprises as it were?
As far as I'm concerned, I don't think there is specific VCs or social funding entities. That's why I said that in certain kind of serious game, a lot of it are really commissioned by certain public agencies. Yeah, and one good example is, as I've said, Magma Studios, beside the National Heritage Sport that they're doing. In fact, they are also doing something which MOE is going to commission them to do, to teach children, in terms of pronouncing English and things like that. So, in terms of specific VCs, I do not, in my opinion, I do not think, there is one specific that's looking into it. And again, it all depends on, what kind of,
Magma did War of Classic, that's one the National Heritage Board.
Yes.
Magma itself, are they considered a serious game studio, or
Not really, not really. I think it's all sorts of games that they will. I'm not categorizing them as a serious game company, but I'm just saying that in terms of what we're talking about in serious games, that's how how serious games is being produced and why people want to commission it and what is the objective. So it's a debating thing whether is it going to be a revenue making, and because that boils down to what I have stated very clearly: what is your primary objective and what is your secondary objective? Because for some matter of fact, sponsors may not even want to derive, what they call a secondary objective in terms of revenues making all this, because it's all about public awareness. Yeah.
I think it goes to sorry to join the panel.
No worries.
It goes towards what Marcus was saying before. You may not. Why do you want to call yourself a serious game studio? Right? What do you want to do that? You're a game studio, and as a game studio, you do certain developments, and maybe like this, it gives you flexibility because let's say you see an opportunity to do something that's maybe not categorized as serious, but still has an educational angle or something, then people will say, hey, what are you doing this? You're a serious game studio. So I think serious game, again, is one of those things you stick in a jar because people out there have to sort of put you in a box. Okay?
Yep.
Native ads,
Yeah, I think just to sum it up, I think what we kind of concluded is that one, to monetize, you need to make sure that the products must be of value to what it is going to. And serious game, like all sort of games category, it's just a genre, right? If you are building a studio, serious game can be one of the options, one of the product, one of the focus. You have a certain team of people working on. At the same time, you will have others, casual game or entertainment game, or even advertising games that you are looking at to keep the studio going. And I think that's from a VC point of view, that's where scalability is. That's where you can scale up your business, where you do not have a downtime and say, look, we are waiting for the beta returns of this serious game and we got nothing to do. And guess what? We are not paid yet. So how are we going to keep our stuff going? That is something that I presume no VC, no advertiser will want to put their product into your games because it's not going to get you anywhere. So bottom line, there must be value. There is way to monetize it. I think David Wally have a very good conclusion. Serious. If he put out an example, a serious games about defabricating a heart attack victim using a branded defabricators. So I think that's where you want to get the right product to the right user, even through a serious game content, through a serious game manner, you can get it working, and there is definitely some ways to market it, right? So we thank you all for the time on the panel.